I thought I'd take a moment to take stock of the Gallagher Premiership. 3 rounds in, and with an awesome weekend of rugby ahead. When you look at the fixtures, which I will come to, it's so good. I love this competition. So if you love the Premiership as well, and if you want to see more people enjoying the Premiership, hearing about the Premiership, then you can really help. Doesn't cost you anything or take you any time, but drop a little thumbs up on the video, hit subscribe as well. Leave your comment down below. Let's talk about the Prem then. 3 rounds in we are to the season. There is one team with a 100% record, Saracens, and there are 2 teams with a 0% winless run at the moment in Newcastle Falcons and Exeter Chiefs. I'll talk in big stories and takeaways, as well as digging down into some of the games themselves. But I think one of the first things I would say, I look at the table and there's not enough teams. We are 3 games in, which is 1/6 of the way through the regular season. At the end of October, when this first little block of games finishes, the Premiership will go away for a whole month. And we'll forget about the competition, and then we'll go, oh, right, who's where again in November? Okay, fine. So I get it. And we're always saying how rugby players need to play less, play fewer games, and these players are playing fewer games. So I guess that's good for them on a welfare point of view. But 9 Premiership home games a season, how sustainable is that from a financial perspective when you have a stadium and a ground and staff and you want to get season ticket money? 9 home games in the Premiership a year is not enough. Then again, you could also say there's one too many teams in the league, because try as they might, Newcastle are not of this required standard right now. And they look, again, despite Steve Diamond saying before the season that they would not finish bottom and they would surprise people, it's looking, even at this early stage, like Newcastle will finish bottom and will be a chunk below, which means quite often you have mismatches when teams play against Newcastle, as we saw at the weekend with Leicester. So I don't know what you think there, and I don't know what the solution is, but it's brilliant and also not ideal. But let's focus on the positives, as I prefer to do. And Saracens there at the top with 3 wins. And they are an amazing organisation, you know. They've got 6 or 7, is it? 6, 7? Forget how many. Loads of Premiership titles to their name. And Champions Cup titles as well. They've been at the very, very top. And they've been down. And then they're climbing back up again. But this, I was expecting to be a rebuild year for them. Losing Owen Farrell, losing the Vunipolas, losing Maitland and Lewington. Loads of rugby IQ and loads of big name players, and replacing them with youngsters. Should never have doubted Mark McCall and the squad that he's got, which is brilliant. You look at their back row options, and with Tom Willis and Theo McFarland and Ben Earl, there's few better back row combinations in all of Europe, frankly, in back rows. It's awesome. They've got loads of good players, and there's just something about this club. The culture of it, they get a load of stick from fans of other clubs, but you have to respect what Saracens are about, what Saracens do, and Mark McCall. I would just temper the excitement, though, because I was thinking this was going to be a tough year for Saracens and they might miss out on the playoffs. They have won their first 3 games, but those were playing against Gloucester, Sale, and Exeter. Their next 3 games, Quins away, Bristol away, Leicester at home. Let's judge Saracens and where they're really at after round 6, because that is the great thing about this competition. Things can change quickly, and any team can beat any team for the most part on any given day, which is why I'm not also hitting the panic button when it comes to Exeter Chiefs as well, who have 3 defeats, a really young team. Last year, everyone was expecting them to struggle, and they exceeded expectations massively, getting not far away from the playoffs, getting to the quarterfinal in the Champions Cup. But you take Henry Slade out of that team, he's injured at the moment, he's the glue, and it looks very, very different. And I mean, this is the worry about the Premiership being so short now, only 18 games in the regular season. Exeter have lost 3 games. If they don't win at least one of their next 3 games, and they play Bristol, Quins and Newcastle, I think. Big 3 weeks for them. Because if they don't win at least one of those games, their season could be, I'm not going to say over, but it could be getting close to being over, because you're in danger of not reaching the playoffs, even at this early stage. If you're no wins from 6, you're adrift, and it's a big mountain to climb. Sale managed to do it last year with a late season surge, but really hard to do. And then when you look at the Champions Cup for Exeter, they've got the Sharks, they're going away to Durban, Toulouse and Bordeaux, they have to play at home, and then they go away to Ulster. That's a tough bunch of fixtures in the Champions Cup. They could end up going out in the pool stages as well. And then their season is in danger of being done before Christmas. And this is one of the problems I have with no relegation in the Premiership. The jeopardy that relegation brings makes games really meaningful. Sandy Park is an amazing ground. Exeter is a brilliant rugby heartland. They're a great club. But the danger, again, it's a big if at this point, but the danger, and this is one of the weaknesses of the Premiership, is those fans may not be motivated to turn up at Sandy Park if the season doesn't quite go the way they want for too much longer, for another month or so. So I'm not being doom and gloom, because I think Rob Baxter is such an amazing coach, and he's done brilliantly with a young group of guys, and they're building something there at Exeter. But you take leadership out, and it becomes a whole lot harder. And leadership is the story when it comes to Northampton Saints, because they look good. They look good. But they don't look quite the same force they were winning the Premiership last year. And you have to only really point to leadership being a massive part of that, losing Alex Waller and Courtney Laws and Lewis Ludlam. And I guess when you think about Exeter, that's one of the stories, how important leadership is. How can you get around that when you don't have it? How can these new characters come to the fore and take a team on? George Furbank leading Northampton Saints. And you really, and I suppose it hasn't been helped by the fact that Alex Mitchell is also injured. So I think Northampton are going to be fine. They're a very good team. They've got too many good players not to be in contention. But it is just really interesting to look at how just a couple of players with real experience in can make a massive difference, which is why as well Saracens have done so well. Leicester seem to have a bit of steel under them with Michael Checker, and I suppose you can get your leadership from players on the field, you can get your leadership from coaches. And this guy seems to have freshened things up at Leicester. They've got 2 wins, 1 narrow defeat against Bath, and they've still got, and this is the crucial part, Julien Montoya and Andre Pollard, world-class players to come back in. And in terms of experience, as well as a new coach who's been there and done it, they've got Cole, Youngs, Brown, Watson, Liebenberg. They've got a lot of big names. I honestly think Leicester Tigers could be Championship contenders just purely when you look at the names that they have when it comes to the business end of the season, and you need that experience. The 2 teams I'd say that I'm kind of like could go either way. They could end up winning it, or they could end up bombing and finishing 9th in the table, would be Quins and Sale. And I quite like the Premiership because it is so competitive. The table is a knife edge. You can have a great run of games, get a few players back fit, get a bit of momentum, get a good feeling around the place. Suddenly you're in the playoffs and you're on the way to potential glory. Equally, you can't switch off for too long, because this block of 6 games, when it's done at the end of this month, that's 1/3 of the season gone. So you have to kind of get things right there. That at least makes games have plenty of jeopardy, because every win is absolutely massive. The team that I've enjoyed watching the most so far this season is Bristol Bears. They are so much fun to watch. And they beat, in a really, really important win for their fans, away at Bath, who looked like being the title favourites. To go to Bath and win in the way that Bristol did was very, very impressive. Bath are going to be fine. They've got too much quality not to be in the mix. This feels like it's their season. If they perform, Bath should win the title, but there's other teams that are vying for that, Bristol included, who only had 40% possession and 30% territory, managed to score 36 points and just take so many great chances. And what I found interesting is, it was the Saracens game, wasn't it? Saracens v Exeter. There were 80 kicks from hand in the match. Not complaining. I quite like a bit of tactical kicking. In this match, there were only 20 in the whole game. Bristol only kicked the ball out of hand 9 times. The same with Bath. I'm wondering if this is the law change, the DuPont law thing, and the impact it's having, or whether there's actually a positive mindset shift in in more teams to move the ball more, because Bath kicked the ball a lot more last year, and I expect them to kick a bit more in games ahead. But Bristol, that's not how they play, and they will just go and drop the hammer. But crucially, you cannot just play wild attacking rugby. You have to have different strengths, and Bristol's maul is brilliant. And also, what I love about that is, what does the maul do? It ties in loads of Bath defenders, which creates more space for their gas men out wide. Bristol are a really good example, much like South Africa actually, of the dual threat that you have, and each one helps the other. So I love the fact that with 40% of possession, Bristol ran for more meters, beat more defenders, offloaded more, and more importantly, scored more points. So the different tactical approaches that teams make in the Premiership is what makes this league so fun, because, and that's how you go from week to week. And one team that looked brilliant against one team last week can lose to a team the next week, because it's the different tactical approaches and the matchups that creates, and the little chess games that creates. And I love this competition for that. But above all, what I love about the Premiership, and the biggest strength that the Premiership has over, say, the URC, and it's not a competition. I'm not here saying that one's better than that one. They're both brilliant competitions. They've both got strengths of their own. They've both got limitations of their own. The strength that the Premiership has is hundreds of years of history in all of these fixtures. It's like a derby weekend this weekend. And look at that. Sale against Newcastle, the King of the North. Alex Sanderson and Steve Diamond going head-to-head for like the northern bragging rights. Exeter Bristol, a bit of a southwest derby, but in terms of southwest derbies, Gloucester Bath, that's got a bit of edge on it. Being in the shed in Gloucester at Kingsholm this weekend that's where I'd choose to be in England, because yeah, that's going to be a feisty, edgy one in the stands in a really fun way, and two teams that play a lot of good rugby, so that'll be really interesting. And Leicester against Northampton, exactly the same. One of the criticisms I've had about the Premiership in years gone by is that we've had games like this. Leicester Tigers against Northampton Saints, East Midlands rivals. We've had games like that, and the England players haven't been there. But now, with 10 teams in the division, with a new professional game partnership agreement, you imagine, and please let it be the case, that the fans get to turn out in big numbers, a packed Welford Road, let's hope we get that, and they watch all of the England stars and Argentinian and South African stars, hopefully. We've got Montoya and Pollard back for Leicester, and you get full bore teams going head-to-head in what should be an absolutely massive game. And the same goes with Harlequins against Saracens. Those two teams do not like each other one bit. When Saracens were winning everything and Harlequins weren't doing quite so well, I think it was more a rivalry for Harlequins than it was for Saracens. Quins were desperate to beat Sarries. Sarries were just kind of like, well, yeah, whatever, we're off winning Champions Cups and Premierships. We don't really care about you. Then Quins went and won the league, took the mantle from Saracens. There's real needle in this one. The two sets of players do not like each other well. So what a brilliant way to finish a weekend. And like I say, that is the strength of the Premiership. And I can't wait for it. Can't wait. And look, if you love the Premiership as well, like I said at the start, and you appreciate the coverage of it, it's very noticeable that domestic rugby doesn't get the interest, the attention, and let me be totally honest, the numbers and the views that international rugby gets. If you want to change that, because I would love it, then yeah, do your bit. Boost the algorithm by leaving a comment, giving a thumbs up, and hitting subscribe. Thank you for watching. I'll see you on the next one.